brilliant heart surgeon, a trail of perfect surgeries, and a deadly secret. Every patient he saved died weeks later. Was Dr. Michael Harrow a medical genius or a murderer? One rival's betrayal would unravel it all. This is the shocking true story that shook the medical world.
A courtroom in Manhattan, July 2025. The air's thick with tension, cameras flashing like lightning in a storm. Reporters scribble furiously, their pens scratching like nails on a chalkboard. In the center of it all sits Dr. Richard Hayes, a man who once held hearts in his hands, literally. His face is pale, his eyes hollow, like he's already half gone. The judge's gavel slams down, a sound that echoes like a gunshot in the silence. Death, the judge declares, and the room erupts. Richard's lips move, barely audible over the chaos. "I didn't do it!" His words hang in the air, a plea no one believes. The screen fades to black, and you hear a single, chilling whisper, 6 months earlier. Let's step back to January 2025, when Richard Hayes was a god in New York, a cardiologist with a gift. They called him the miracle surgeon. His hands could tame a failing heart, stitching arteries with the precision of a master artist. That day, in the sterile glow of Manhattan General Hospital, he was in his element. Charles Whitaker, a 58-year-old Wall Street tycoon, lay on the operating table, his heart a tangle of clogged veins. Richard's scalpel moved like it had a mind of its own. "Clamp in place," he said, his voice cool as the steel in his hand. The nurses watched, barely breathing, one muttering, "He's a genius." 4 grueling hours later, it was done. Whitaker's heart beat steady, a testament to Richard's skill. He stepped back, peeling off his mask, a faint smile on his lips, another life pulled from the edge. That night, the hospital was alive with celebration. Colleagues toasted Richard's 100th successful bypass. Glasses clinked, laughter echoed through the corridors. A banner hung proudly, "Dr. Hayes, 100th miracle." But not everyone was cheering. Dr. Emily Carter, Richard's colleague and friend, caught him in a quiet corner. She was sharp, always noticing the cracks others ignored. "You're on top of the world, Richard," she said, but her tone was tight. "Just watch your back. Whitaker's not the first to walk out of here looking cured." Richard waved her off, his laugh a little too loud. "Come on, Emily. It's just medicine. Sometimes you lose." But her words stuck, like a splinter under his skin. 2 other patients, both discharged healthy, both dead within weeks. Heart attacks, the report said. Coincidence, everyone agreed. But Emily's eyes said something else, something Richard didn't want to hear. A week later, Charles Whitaker was back in his world of wealth and power. His penthouse overlooked Central Park, all glass and marble, a kingdom built on money and power. He stood by the window, a whiskey in hand, ice clinking softly. "To second chances," he said, raising the glass. Then it hit. A pain so sharp it stole his breath. His hand flew to his chest, fingers clawing at his shirt. The glass fell, shattering into 1,000 pieces. Whitaker staggered, his face twisted in agony, and collapsed. His body hit the floor, lifeless, the city lights glinting in his open, unseeing eyes. Paramedics arrived too late. The news swept through New York like a plague. Wall Street giant dead after miracle surgery. The autopsy was clear. Richard's surgery was flawless. No mistakes, no errors. Yet, Whitaker was gone. His heart stopped like a machine unplugged. Richard sat alone in his office, the walls lined with awards now mocking him. His laptop glowed with venom, headlines screaming, "Hero or killer!" His phone buzzed with messages, grieving families, furious colleagues, reporters circling like sharks. He scrolled through Whitaker's file, his hands trembling. "I saved him," he whispered, as if saying it would make it true. Emily knocked, her face pale. "The board's talking, Richard. 3 deaths in a month? They're coming for you." His eyes flashed with defiance. "You saw the autopsies, Emily. My work was perfect." She stepped closer, her voice low, urgent. "Then what's killing them? Something happens after they leave this hospital, and you need to figure out what." Richard had no answer, just a gnawing dread that coiled tighter with every breath. While Richard tossed in bed that night, unable to sleep, something else was moving in the shadows. Across town, in the small pharmacy tied to his clinic, the world was quiet. The streets outside were empty, the neon sign flickering faintly. A figure slipped through the back door, their face hidden under a dark hoodie. The shelves were packed with medications, pills, syringes, and rows of cardio gel, the gel Richard prescribed to every patient after surgery. The figure's gloved hands moved fast, precise. They pulled a bottle from their pocket, identical to the ones on the shelf, and swapped it with one labeled cardio gel. The labels matched perfectly, down to the barcode. But something was wrong. Something deadly. The figure paused, their breath steady, a smirk curling in the dark. They slipped out, silent as a ghost, leaving the bottle behind like a loaded gun. Richard lay awake, Emily's words echoing in his head. Something happens after they leave. He stared at the ceiling, the weight of doubt pressing down. He didn't know it yet, but that bottle was the first domino in a chain that would destroy him. The headlines would only get louder, the accusations sharper. The miracle surgeon was falling, and someone was making sure he'd never get up. Who was that figure in the pharmacy? What was in that bottle? And why was Richard the target? The truth was out there, hiding in plain sight, and it was darker than anyone could imagine. The city never sleeps, but in January 2025, Dr. Richard Hayes wished it would. His world was crumbling and the shadows were closing in. After Charles Whitaker's death, the headlines had turned vicious. Miracle surgeon or silent killer, they screamed, each word a blade to his reputation. 3 patients, 3 healthy men, dead within weeks of leaving his operating table. All from heart attacks, all after perfect surgeries. Richard sat in his Manhattan apartment, the glow of his laptop casting harsh light on his face. He scrolled through hate-filled emails, accusations from strangers who once called him a hero. His phone buzzed with a voicemail from a reporter. "Dr. Hayes, how do you sleep knowing your patients don't wake up?" He deleted it, his hands shaking, but the question lingered like a ghost. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him, pulling strings he couldn't see. Enter Detective Sarah Lawson, a woman who could smell a lie from a mile away. She was 38, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, the kind of cop who'd seen too much to believe in coincidences. She'd been assigned to Richard's case after Whitaker's death, the 3rd in a month, and her gut told her this wasn't just bad luck. She stood in the hospital's sterile corridor, her boots clicking against the polished floor, staring at Richard through the glass wall of his office. He looked like a man drowning, papers strewn across his desk, coffee cups piling up. She knocked, and he flinched, his eyes meeting hers. "Dr. Hayes," she said, her voice calm but cold, "we need to talk." Richard stood, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I've got nothing to hide, Detective. My surgeries were flawless." Sarah leaned forward, her gaze like a scalpel. "Then why are your patients dropping dead?" Sarah had done her homework. She'd pored over the autopsies, each one a dead end. No surgical errors, no obvious poisons, just a faint trace of an unknown substance in the blood, something the coroner couldn't pin down. But there was a pattern, one that made her skin crawl. Every patient had been prescribed cardiogel, a medication from Richard's private pharmacy, the one tied to his clinic. She'd visited the pharmacy that morning, a small, unassuming place tucked behind the hospital. The shelves were neat, the staff nervous. The manager, a wiry man named Paul, avoided her eyes when she asked about cardiogel. "It's standard," he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Dr. Hayes orders it for everyone." Sarah didn't buy it. Something about Paul's twitchy hands, the way he kept glancing at the back door, set her nerves on edge.
That night, Sarah did what she did best. She followed her instincts. She parked her unmarked car across from the pharmacy, the neon sign flickering in the dark. Around midnight, a delivery van pulled up, no logo, no plates. A man stepped out, hood up, carrying a crate inside. Sarah's pulse quickened. She waited, then followed on foot, slipping into the alley behind the pharmacy. The back door was ajar and she heard voices, low, urgent. "Make sure it's the right batch," one said. No mistakes this time. Sarah peered through the crack, catching a glimpse of the hooded man handing Paul a stack of cardiogel bottles. Paul nodded, his hands shaking as he tucked them away. Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her partner. "Board suspending Hayes tomorrow." She cursed under her breath. Time was running out. Back at the hospital, Richard was unraveling. He'd spent hours combing through patient files, searching for answers. The autopsies haunted him. Perfect surgeries, yet death followed like a shadow. He called Emily Carter, his voice tight with desperation. "Emily, I need you to check something. The cardiogel. Could it be contaminated?" Emily hesitated, her voice crackling over the phone. "Richard, I warned you about Victor Kane. He's been sniffing around your patients, your prescriptions. He's got a grudge. You know that." Victor Kane! Richard's old rival, a cardiologist with a smile like a snake. They trained together, but Victor's ego couldn't handle Richard's success. Last week, Victor was on TV, calling Richard reckless, his words dripping with venom. Richard's blood ran cold. Was Victor behind this? The next morning, Sarah was back at the hospital, this time with a warrant. She confronted Richard in the cafeteria, where whispers followed him like flies. "Your pharmacy is dirty, Dr. Hayes." She slid a photo across the table, a blurry shot of the hooded man from the night before. Richard's eyes widened. "I don't know him," he said, but his voice cracked. Sarah leaned in, her voice a low growl. "Someone's swapping your meds and it's killing your patients. You're either in on it or you're the fall guy. Which is it?" Richard's mind raced. He thought of Victor, of Emily's warning, of the bottle of cardiogel on his desk. He'd taken one home, a habit from years of double-checking his work. He hadn't opened it yet, but now he wondered what was really inside. That night, Richard drove to his clinic, the bottle in his pocket. The streets were slick with rain, the city lights blurring like tears. He parked and stepped inside. The pharmacy quiet, except for the hum of a flickering bulb. He pulled the bottle from his pocket, turning it over in his hands. The label was perfect, but something felt off. He cracked it open, the gel inside shimmering under the light. A faint, bitter smell hit him, not like the usual cardiogel. His heart pounded. Before he could move, the lights went out. A shadow moved behind him, fast and silent. He spun, but it was too late. A gloved hand slipped something into his pocket. A note, folded tight. By the time the lights flickered back on, he was alone. He unfolded the note, his hands trembling. 4 words stared back at him. "You can't save them." The rain hadn't stopped in New York, and neither had the storm around Dr. Richard Hayes. It was late January 2025, and the city was turning on him. The miracle surgeon, once a beacon of hope, was now a pariah. 3 patients dead, each one a perfect surgery, each one a heart attack weeks later. The note in Richard's pocket burned like a brand. You can't save them. He stood in his darkened pharmacy, the bottle of cardiogel still in his hand, its bitter smell lingering in the air. Whoever left that note knew something that was tearing his life apart. He stuffed it back in his pocket, his heart racing. The shadows felt alive, watching him, waiting for his next move.
He didn't know it yet, but he was walking straight into a trap. Across town, Detective Sarah Lawson was chasing ghosts. Her lead on the unmarked warehouse on 5th Street had come from an anonymous text, and she didn't trust it, but she was desperate. The blurry photo of the hooded figure at the pharmacy haunted her. She'd seen the man hand over bottles of cardio gel to Paul, the twitchy pharmacy manager, in the dead of night. Something was wrong with those bottles. She could feel it in her bones. Sarah pulled up to the warehouse, a hulking, rusted building tucked behind a row of abandoned lots. The air was damp, the streetlights flickering. She slipped inside through a broken window, her flashlight cutting through the dark. The place was empty. Bare concrete floors, cobwebs clinging to the walls. But then she saw it. A single crate in the corner, half hidden under a tarp. Her pulse quickened as she approached, lifting the tarp to reveal a stack of cardiogel bottles, their labels identical to the ones in Richard's pharmacy. She reached for one, but a faint click stopped her cold. A camera, hidden in the shadows, blinked red. Someone was watching. Back at the hospital, Richard was losing ground. The board had suspended him that morning, their faces grim as they handed him the notice. "Until we figure out what's killing your patients, you're done," they'd said. He'd stormed out, the note in his pocket feeling heavier with every step. He called Emily Carter, his only ally left. "I found something," he told her, his voice low, urgent. "The cardiogel, it smells wrong. I think it's tainted." Emily's silence on the other end was deafening. "Richard, I saw Victor Kane in your office last month messing with your files. I didn't say anything because I was scared. He's dangerous." Victor Kane, Richard's old rival, the man who'd smiled for the cameras while calling him a killer. Richard's blood boiled. He hung up and drove to Victor's office, the rain pounding his windshield like a warning. Victor's office was all glass and steel, a stark contrast to Richard's cluttered workspace. He was there, leaning back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "Richard," he said, his voice smooth as poison, "come to beg for mercy?" Richard slammed the note on the desk. "What's this, Victor? You know something about my patients, don't you?" Victor's eyes flicked to the note, his smirk faltering for a split second. "You're paranoid," he said, leaning forward. "You're grasping at straws, old friend. Your patients died because you got sloppy." Richard lunged at Victor, grabbing his collar. "Tell me the truth," he shouted. Victor laughed, cold and sharp. "The truth? You're finished, Richard. That's all you need to know." Security dragged him out, his shouts echoing down the hall. Victor watched him go, his smile returning, but his hands were shaking. Sarah, meanwhile, was back at the precinct. The cardiogel bottle from the warehouse was locked in evidence. She'd sent it for testing, but her gut told her it was the key. The lab was backed up, and results would take days. Days she didn't have. She pulled up the pharmacy's delivery logs on her laptop, cross-referencing them with the deaths. Every deceased patient had received a batch of cardiogel delivered by that unmarked van. She called Paul, the pharmacy manager, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Uneasy, she drove to his apartment, a cramped walk-up in Brooklyn. The door was ajar, the lock broken. Inside, Paul lay on the floor, his eyes wide open, a syringe beside him. The coroner would call it an overdose, but Sarah wasn't buying it. Someone had gotten to him. She searched the apartment, finding a crumpled receipt for a delivery to the warehouse on 5th Street. It was dated the night she'd seen the hooded figure. Richard wasn't sleeping anymore. He sat in his apartment, the cardiogel bottle on his coffee table, the note beside it. He'd started digging into the pharmacy records himself, hacking into the system with an old login Emily had given him. The delivery logs were a mess. Missing dates, mismatched batch numbers, someone was covering their tracks. He froze when he saw a name, Medicorp, a shadowy supplier tied to the cardiogel shipments. He'd never heard of them, but the name sent a chill down his spine. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Hayes, or you're next." He dropped the phone, his heart pounding. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. He grabbed the cardiogel bottle, ready to take it to Sarah, but a noise stopped him. A creak from the hallway. He turned, the bottle slipping from his hand. The door was open, just a crack, and a shadow moved outside. Sarah was back at the warehouse, this time with backup. The place was still empty, but the crate was gone. She cursed under her breath, her flashlight sweeping the shadows. Then she saw it. A single cardiogel bottle, left on the floor like a taunt. She picked it up, noticing a faint code scratched into the label. MC47. Medicorp. Her mind raced. She called her partner, telling him to dig into the supplier, but the line went dead. A low hum filled the air, and the camera in the corner blinked red again. She spun around, her hand on her gun, but the warehouse was silent. Too silent. Richard stood frozen in his apartment, the creak echoing in his ears. He grabbed a kitchen knife, his breath shallow. "Who's there?" he called, but no one answered. He edged toward the door, the note crumpled in his pocket. The hallway was empty, but something was wrong. His laptop was open, the screen glowing with a new message. You were warned. His patient files were gone, wiped clean. He stumbled back, the knife slipping from his hand. The bottle of cardiogel sat on the table, its label glinting like a warning. Richard was out of time, and the noose was tightening. Someone was always one step ahead, and they weren't done with him yet. The city was a maze of secrets, and Dr. Richard Hayes was lost in it. It was February 2025, and New York's winter had turned as cold as the eyes now watching him. His apartment, once a sanctuary, felt like a cage. The note, "You can't save them," was crumpled in his pocket, its words branded into his mind. His laptop, wiped clean of patient files, stared back at him, a silent accusation. The bottle of cardiogel sat on his coffee table, its strange, bitter smell a constant reminder that something was wrong. 3 patients dead, all tied to that gel, all tied to his name. Richard was no longer the miracle surgeon. He was a man marked for ruin, and someone was making sure he'd never climb out of the hole they dug for him. Detective Sarah Lawson wasn't sleeping either. The warehouse on 5th Street had left her with more questions than answers. The cardiogel bottle she'd found, marked with the code MC47, was at the lab, but results were still days away. The death of Paul, the pharmacy manager, ruled an overdose, gnawed at her. She'd seen the broken lock on his door, the fear in his eyes when she'd questioned him. Someone had silenced him, and Sarah was sure it wasn't a coincidence. She sat in her precinct office, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, digging through the delivery logs she'd pulled from Richard's pharmacy. Every batch of cardiogel came from Medicorp, a supplier she'd never heard of. No website, no public records, just a name and a P.O. box. Her phone buzzed with another anonymous text. Medicorp, look deeper. Her blood ran cold. Whoever was feeding her leads was playing a dangerous game. Richard couldn't sit still. He'd been suspended, his reputation shredded, but he wasn't done fighting. Emily Carter's words about Victor Kane echoed in his head. Victor! His old rival! The man who'd smiled for the cameras while calling him a killer! Richard drove through the rain-slicked streets to the hospital, his hands gripping the wheel. He needed answers, and he needed them now. Emily met him in the parking lot, her face pale under the streetlights. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. They're watching you. Richard's voice was raw. Who, Emily? Victor? Medicorp? Someone broke into my apartment. They're erasing me. Emily hesitated, then pulled him into the shadows. I checked the pharmacy logs, she said. The cardiogel shipments, they're off. Wrong dates, wrong quantities. Someone's tampering with them. Richard's heart sank. And Victor? Emily's eyes darkened. He's been meeting with someone. Late nights, black SUV, no plates. I saw him hand over a file last week. Sarah was chasing her own lead. The anonymous text had pointed her to Medicorp, and she wasn't waiting for the lab. She drove to the address on the receipt from Paul's apartment. A rundown office in Queens, the kind of place that screamed front. The sign read Medicorp Supplies, but the windows were dark, the door locked. She circled to the back, finding a dumpster overflowing with shredded documents. She pulled out a handful, her flashlight catching fragments of words, cardiogel, batch MC47, trial phase. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't just a supplier. It was something bigger, something dirty. She stuffed the papers in her bag, but a noise made her freeze. a low hum like a camera adjusting its lens. She looked up, spotting a tiny red light in the alley's corner. Another camera. She was being watched. Again. Richard was back at his apartment, the cardio gel bottle in his hand. He'd called Sarah, leaving a frantic voicemail. "It's the gel. I know it is. Check Medicorp." But his phone was silent now, and the walls felt like they were closing in. He sat at his desk, the note unfolded before him. "You can't save them." The words mocked him, each one a reminder of his failure. He thought of Victor, of the black SUV Emily had seen. He pulled up an old photo on his phone, him and Victor years ago, laughing as young doctors dreaming of changing the world. Now, Victor was tearing his apart. Richard's thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. He froze, the knife from the kitchen in his hand. "Who's there?" he called, but no one answered. He opened the door, finding nothing but a manila envelope on the mat. Inside was a single photo. Victor, standing by that black SUV, handshaking with a man whose face was obscured. Scrawled on the back were 2 words. "Ask Emily." Sarah wasn't giving up. She tracked down the black SUV's last known location, a parking garage near the hospital. She slipped inside, her gun heavy in its holster. The garage was dark, the air thick with exhaust. She spotted the SUV, parked alone in a corner. The windows were tinted, but the driver's door was cracked open. She approached, her flashlight catching a glimpse of papers on the seat. Medicorp letterhead, a list of names. Whitaker's was there, along with the other dead patients. Her heart raced. She reached for the papers, but a shadow moved behind her. She spun, gun raised, but the figure was gone. A car engine roared to life somewhere in the garage, tires screeching as it sped away. Sarah cursed, grabbing the papers. They were delivery schedules, all for cardiogel, all marked MC47. Richard was spiraling. The photo of Victor burned in his hand. Ask Emily? What did that mean? Was she hiding something? He called her, but her phone went to voicemail. He drove to her apartment, the rain blurring his windshield. Her door was locked. Her lights were off. He banged on it, shouting his name, but no one answered. As he turned to leave, he saw it. A black SUV parked across the street, its engine idling. The driver's face was hidden, but Richard felt eyes on him. He backed away, his breath shallow. His phone buzzed. A new text from an anonymous number. "You're too late." He looked back at the SUV, but it was gone, swallowed by the rain. Sarah was back at the precinct. The Medicorp papers spread across her desk. The schedules confirmed her worst fears. Every batch of cardiogel tied to the deaths came from the same supplier. She called the lab, demanding results on the bottle. The tech's voice was shaky. "It's not just gel, detective. There's a toxin, slow-acting, untraceable unless you're looking for it." Sarah's blood ran cold. Someone was poisoning Richard's patients, and Medicorp was the key. But who was pulling the strings? Victor? Paul's killer? Or someone bigger? She grabbed her coat, ready to confront Richard, but her phone rang, an unknown number. "Stop digging, Lawson, or you'll end up like Paul." The line went dead. Sarah stood frozen, the papers trembling in her hand. The trap was closing, and she was in it too. The clock was ticking, and Dr. Richard Hayes was out of time. It was February 2025, and New York's icy grip matched the dread in his chest. The note, "You can't save them," was a noose around his neck, tightening with every step. His apartment was a crime scene now, his laptop wiped, his life erased. The bottle of cardiogel, laced with a toxin, sat on his table, a silent confession of someone else's guilt. 3 patients dead, all tied to that gel, all tied to his name. The photo of Victor Kane with the mysterious man in the black SUV burned in his mind, and the words scrawled on the back, "Ask Emily," cut deeper than any scalpel. Emily Carter, his only friend, was hiding something, and Richard was done waiting for answers. He grabbed the bottle and headed into the night, the rain soaking his coat as he drove to her apartment, determined to end this nightmare. Detective Sarah Lawson was one step behind, as always. The threatening call still echoed in her ears. "Stop digging or you'll end up like Paul." The pharmacy manager's death, staged as an overdose, was no accident. The Medicorp papers from the black SUV confirmed it. Every batch of cardiogel tied to the deaths was laced with a slow-acting toxin designed to kill weeks after surgery. The code MC47 was the key, and Medicorp was the lock. Sarah sat in her car outside Richard's apartment, watching his lights go out. She tried calling him, but his phone was off. Her own phone buzzed with a new message. Victor's office. Now. No sender, no number. Her gut screamed trap, but she had no choice. She gunned the engine, heading for the hospital, the Medicorp papers tucked in her jacket. Richard pounded on Emily's door, the rain dripping from his hair. "Emily, open up!" he shouted, his voice raw. The door creaked open, but it wasn't locked. Inside, the apartment was dark, the air heavy with silence. "Emily!" he called. Stepping inside, a faint light flickered from the bedroom. He found her there, sitting on the bed, her face pale, a gun in her trembling hands. "Richard," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "I didn't want this." He froze, the bottle of cardiogel heavy in his pocket. "What are you talking about? The photo? Victor? The SUV? What do you know?" Emily's voice broke. "I saw him, Richard. Victor was working with Medicorp. They paid him to swap the gel to frame you. I wanted to tell you, but they threatened me." Richard's heart pounded. "Why didn't you come to me?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Because they're bigger than you know." Sarah slipped into Victor's office at the hospital, the glass walls reflecting the city's lights. The place was empty, but papers were scattered across his desk. Medicorp contracts, delivery schedules, all marked MC47. Her flashlight caught a name at the bottom, Edward Grayson, CEO of Medicorp. She'd seen that name before, buried in the shredded documents from the Queen's office. Grayson was no small-time supplier. He was a shadow in the pharmaceutical world, untouchable. Sarah's phone buzzed again, an audio file from an unknown number. She played it, her blood running cold. Victor's voice, clear and smug. "Grayson, the last batch is in. Hayes is done." A second voice, cold as steel. "Good. No loose ends." Sarah's hands shook as she pocketed the phone. She turned to leave, but the door swung open. Victor stood there, his smile venomous. "Detective, you're in your head," he said. Richard was still in Emily's apartment, the gun in her hand a ticking bomb. "Who's they, Emily?" he demanded. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Medicorp. They're testing drugs, illegal trials. Your patients were their guinea pigs. Victor swapped the gel to cover it up, to make it look like your fault." Richard's mind reeled. His patients, his reputation, all sacrificed for some corporate game. He grabbed her shoulders. "We need to go to the police." But before she could answer, a shadow moved in the hallway. A man stepped into the light, his face the same as the one in the photo with Victor. "You should have listened to the note, Hayes," he said, his gun gleaming. Emily screamed, and Richard dived for cover as a shot rang out. Sarah didn't flinch. She stared Victor down, her hand on her holster. "It's over, Kane," she said. "I've got your voice on tape and the papers. Medicorp's done." Victor laughed, stepping closer. "You think you can touch Grayson? He owns people, cops, judges, everyone." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Not me." She lunged, tackling him to the ground. They struggled, papers flying until she cuffed him, his smirk finally gone. Her radio crackled, backup was on the way. But her phone buzzed again with a live feed. It was Richard's apartment, a camera showing him gone. Another text, "Check Emily's place." Sarah's heart sank. She left Victor with the arriving officers and sped toward Brooklyn. Richard scrambled behind the bed, Emily's screams echoing. The man from the photo fired again, the bullet grazing Richard's arm. "Medicorp, thank you for your service, doctor," he sneered. Richard grabbed the cardiogel bottle and threw it, hitting his hand. The gun clattered to the floor. Richard tackled him, fists flying, but the man was stronger. Emily grabbed the gun, her hands shaking. "Stop!" she yelled, pointing it at the man. He froze, his eyes cold. "You're dead anyway, Carter," he spat. Sirens wailed outside. Sarah was close. The man lunged for Emily, but Richard shoved him back, the two crashing through the apartment. Sarah burst in, gun drawn. "Freeze!" she shouted. The man smirked, raising his hands, but not before slipping a vial into his pocket. In the chaos, Sarah cuffed the man, her eyes meeting Richard's. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, blood dripping from his arm. Emily was sobbing, the gun still in her hands. The truth came spilling out. Medicorp's illegal drug trials, Victor's betrayal, and Grayson's orders to frame Richard. The tainted cardio gel was their weapon, killing patients to hide their experiments. Sarah's audio file and the Medicorp papers sealed it. The FBI raided Grayson's office that night, finding evidence of a decade-long scheme. Victor confessed, pointing fingers at Grayson to save himself. Richard's name was cleared, but the cost was heavy. He stood outside the hospital, the rain washing away the blood, knowing he'd never hold a scalpel again. The city moved on, but the scars remained.